Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the May 18th, 2021 Conservation Easement Board meeting. And it is 6:31 p.m. So we have a couple items on the agenda tonight. We have the Wade Minor Subdivision, and then we have the Guinan Minor Subdivision. So let's get started with the first item, the Wade Minor Subdivision. It's at 140 Klein Road, owner Jane Wade. And just reading through the agenda brief here. So the applicant is requesting approval to create two lots from the existing parcel. Lot 1 will contain 4.765 acres with the existing residence and farm structures. Lot 2 will consist of remaining 24.64 acres. Lot 2 will continue to be used for agricultural purposes, and therefore applicant is requesting a waiver from design and construction standards. So who do we have on from this Wade project? Looks like we have John Wade.
Greetings. Yes, my name's John Wade. I'm Jane Wade's grandson, part owner of the Klein Road LLC, which as part of the proposal will own a 24-acre piece of property.
Okay. Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us. So just a little bit about us. We are we're the Conservation Board. We're an advisory board to the Planning Board, and you know, as easy as it sounds, we're aimed at focusing on conservation, natural resources, and we typically review all new projects that come in to the Planning Board, both commercial and residential like this. And we provide some input to the Planning Board, you know, as they progress through their cycles. You know, particularly we're looking at, you know, environmental items. You know, what are you doing with, you know, water control? What are you doing with, you know, trees? Are you removing trees? You know, are you planting anything? Easements, you know, trying to help out landowners with easements. So I think looking at this project, I did a little background research on this, and I think the rest of the board did. It seems pretty straightforward. I mean, you're simply carving out a lot with the existing structures and you know, letting the second lot you know, be on its own. Is there, I guess, any plans for that, or any more details you can give us?
No plans. It's going to be continued to use for farm purposes. Essentially, the reason why we're doing this is for estate planning. Grandmother is not doing very well, unfortunately. Want to be able to sell that house and farm structures and retain ownership over the raw land. And again, don't see any actual change in use of the property.
Okay. Board members, any comments or questions on this one?
No, to me, it looks like just a simple subdividing of land. No earth is being moved, so I don't have any other comments.
Yeah,
I agree.
Same here. Same.
yeah. I don't have any thoughts. I've driven by it many a time out there on Klein Road, and a beautiful house, beautiful barn, and honestly beautiful lots, I guess now you can say, or will be able to say soon. So no further comments, no further questions. Any questions for us?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, nothing off the top of my head.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't think we have any comments, you know, to pass along. And when's your next meeting with the Planning Board?
I want to say it's like June 6th or something like that. I think it's first week of June.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, That's the luck. We don't have any comments. You're welcome to stick around for the second item here, or you can hop off.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm going to go find some food. So thank you, everyone, for your time this evening.
No
Thank
problem.
you.
Thanks, John. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay. Guinan, minor subdivision. So this one is so Diane Guinan, who's the executor of the executor estate of Edward Guinan. So the family is requesting a subdivision of a piece of property 6465 on County Road 41 into two parcels to permit the sale of the home and 5 acres separately from the remaining 112 acres of land. The house is serviced by public water, natural gas, and a septic. So does not create any disruptions with to these current services. Yes, thank you. So obviously it's a fairly large lot. You can see in the middle there it has that stream. I guess you call a stream or wet area that runs through it. Doesn't impact this lot or this part of the project, obviously. There could be some potential implications later on if there's further subdivisions, but again, I think this one seems pretty straightforward. I don't know if did everyone get a chance to look at this one?
Yes. Yeah, I took a look at it, and I have the same. No comments really. Nothing being moved or changed. Just simple paper subdivision. So at this point, I don't have any comments.
Same here.
Agree.
Agreed.
Yeah, I thought we would have someone from the Guinan party joining us here. Okay. I don't have anything else. So no further comments on Guinan at this point. Well, we have a few minutes before the other folks are scheduled to join here. Let's talk a little bit about meeting minutes here. You want to pull those up, Susie?
Minutes?
Yes.
Yeah, minutes.
Oh.
Yep.
Minutes,
Oh.
yeah, minutes from last.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't have those handy or available.
Okay, no worries.
Sorry. They're not
No
part
worries.
of, I think.
I did have a chance to review them, Andrew, and that was a relatively short meeting, and
Yes.
I believe our comments were, as far as I could see, captured appropriately.
Yeah, I'm just reading through it again. Yeah,
Mhm.
look, there was one item, was the pool,
Mhm.
Or pool house rather. It was in the LDD, that's right. Yeah, this one was, again, pretty straightforward. All right, well, I guess looking for a motion to approve.
Yeah, I'll make a motion. We approve those minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey,
Okay, well, since we're moving at a record pace here. Ed, you got anything from the town or from the board?
No, just very quiet lately, which is not a bad thing, but obviously you're in this season where builders and homeowners are ramping up for, little projects, whether it's a shed or a pool or, we're dealing with a lot of that currently. Obviously builders build now. This is the time of year for them to do that. So there's a lot of that going on in the town. The rec program, they're trying to develop a variety of outdoor programming. We're not ready to go indoors yet, but based on everything we're hearing about, the state potentially loosening things up, getting up back to more normal, we expect to start seeing some of that programming return in the fall. So we'll see.
Good.
Cool.
Still Zoom meetings for the
It's
foreseeable
really
future?
up to you guys. The town board is meeting in person.
Mhm.
Okay, we're observing, the social distancing and masks and all that, but we are meeting in person. The planning board is still on Zoom. You guys currently are still on Zoom. As far as I know, almost everybody else is still on Zoom. They've found out that, hey, this works for us. We, can accomplish the business and the things we need to do. So, again, it's your call. If the board wanted to meet in person, I don't see that as being an issue at this point. Of course, right now, today, sitting here, the rule would be masked and social distancing and all that, but you can manage that. But if you guys are comfortable doing the Zoom like you've been doing, it seems to work for everybody at this moment. So there's no like rush, like, oh, you guys got to get back. Nobody's saying any of that. It's totally up to each of the individual boards about what they want to do.
I think it's nicer for the even the visitors, the Labellas of the world, et cetera, to be able to be home with family, jump on, instead of being in Victor when they live in whatever, Greece.
Right? No, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's certainly some advantages, to that.
Yeah. Any feedback from residents? Either way.
I haven't had a lot, no. And one of the things we find out, and Susie can attest to this, is that there's not a whole lot of people that are even following it. But what I hear, or the big thing I hear, is later on, people are going back to YouTube and watching after.
Yes, that is a big thing. They may not watch it live, but we get a lot of views after the fact.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I've had a few people mention that they've gone back and watched a few of our live YouTube sessions.
Is it because of our comedy?
Don't quit your day job.
Okay. Thanks for the feedback.
But no, seriously, I think, you know what? Think about it. Even if we're in person at town hall, it might be something we still want to be able to have available for residents to view later on. I mean, I think that's an advantage for people who perhaps could not attend a meeting, but are still concerned and interested. Hey, I couldn't go to the conservation board, but on Friday afternoon, I'm done with work. Hey, let me pop on to YouTube and see what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, there's definitely some value to having them recorded and having them available for people to see at a later date.
Yeah, definitely more transparent. I mean, you can definitely see more
All right.
the color, the background that doesn't always make it to exactly into the notes. So
Into the minutes, correct.
or minutes. Mm-hmm.
And we had talked about, as a board, transparency in government, so I think that this certainly is about as transparent as you can possibly get, because you're right there, and it's video and you can see it, and you can see when I make a face at Matt or Andrew or somebody, like, oh my God, how could he say that?
Yep,
And
that happens.
Yeah. But it's just, I think that there's some value in it. So we'll probably have a discussion as a town board later on about if everybody does, number one, go back, how do we continue to be able to provide this? So
Yeah, I
we'll
think
see.
we've seen quite a bit of project engagement too, from whether it's, we've always seen it on the commercial side where the developers are coming, but we've seen quite a few actual homeowners call in, which I think is great. I think that's really helpful, and it's probably helpful for them. They don't have to drive into the board meeting and wait and sit around. They can call in when it's easy for them and hang up and be done.
Well, and one of the things that you guys do pretty well, and some of the other boards do also, is explain, like, like you did tonight, how this board works and what the intent is and how that, if I was somebody who just moved into Victor and I didn't know anything about anything, and I pop this on, and so that's what the conservation board does, and I see how they review a project. So from an education standpoint, if I'm coming in with a project and I already know I'm going to go before the conservation board, and I know the kind of things you guys may ask me about my project, I can be more prepared,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
Because we have had people that show up to a meeting and like, well, I know I'm supposed to be here. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And like, you know, so they could, let's say if you're on the agenda for 2 weeks from now, you can watch a couple of them and say, oh, okay, these are the kind of questions that are asked. These are the kind of things that people prepare to bring in. Now I know what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't get that from the minutes either.
Yeah, that might be a little bit of a testament to how quick our meetings have gone here in the past.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had some pretty simple ones, but like last one was like 10 minutes, maybe. The one before, maybe 15 at the most. I mean, they were
Right.
pretty simple projects, but at the same time, maybe it's cleaned up the process a bit, Ed, to your point.
Yeah.
Yep. And then we still have our site walks and, you know, get out and get our hands
course.
dirty for those, which is great and so helpful. So works well.
Yeah, one of the things that was a discussion point at the last town board meeting this last week was the Wilkins RV.
Mhm.
And I made sure that, hey, no, these guys went out, they did the site walk, they've been involved in it, you know, from the beginning, because there's a lot of questions about the wetlands and where they want to put the building and how's that going to fit. And but I assured them that you guys are all over it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It didn't look close since you mentioned it. It didn't look like, I know it didn't look like it was going to encroach on that at all.
Yeah, I didn't think it was gonna, but again, that was a question because everybody heard that the showroom's going back behind there. Oh, isn't there wetlands back there? And of course, they're not looking at a map or scale or whatever. All they're hearing is, all right, wait, they're moving it back and the wetlands are back there. And, you know, so.
Right. Yeah. And that's why site walks are the best. You know, we're standing right there. Oh, this is where the corner of the building is going to be. Okay. You know, you get your sight lines, you really get a feel for what it's going to look like. And
Yeah, it's right, exactly. Especially with Victor, that project in particular, it's fairly flat. But with Victor, some of the other projects, you start looking at the elevation changes and the slopes. Wow.
Well, look at
yeah.
O'Neill.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
exactly.
That one is all hilly.
Mm-hmm.
Would add that it was really good to have Wes out there
Mhm.
walking. It was Wes, right? Because he pointed out some things too, and it was just really helpful to have him there. Maybe on one of the more sensitive projects.
Yeah.
Not saying that we need to do that every time, but I thought it was helpful.
Yeah. And to your point, when you're
Yeah.
reviewing a project and you feel like it is close to something or sensitive to something, invite them.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Pat. And that's we probably could have used them on some of the bigger ones. Like I'll just use an example that's they're being built now as Piper Meadows. I think
Mhm.
you know, just a project like that. I'm not picking on them in particular,
Right.
but
No.
it's big, it's large.
Right.
Right.
A lot of people came to that meeting and had questions and
Yeah.
concerns, and you know, it's good to have a technical resource.
Subject matter expert. Yeah.
So me that can answer any questions if needed. So yeah, I like that idea. I think that's a great suggestion.
And then the other thing is when Wes is involved, when he goes back to the planning board, right? If he's sitting in there and they come up with some, oh yeah, the conservation board, we talked about that on our site walk and you know, so he can relay that information also.
Yeah. Helps keep us all on the same page.
Yeah.
Well, I have to apologize to everyone. I'm the one that recommended the 7 o'clock for everyone because I figured there'd be other questions and comments from the second item tonight, but you know, there was a pretty smooth sailing. So
No worries.
Okay, don't apologize. It's a good thing.
yeah.
So, Andrew, we were talking a little bit in our pre-work, and didn't seem like there was anything really new, right? It's just going to be chatting with these folks to see what questions they have. Let us know what we're going to be looking for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The thought was to, you know, gather what they their questions or comments, what they'd like to do with the property, in particular the conservation easement areas, and have a discussion on what do they want to, do they want to mow it? Is there a desire to plant back there? The septic, I think the well that Pat brought up, that's a really good question. Just take it all back, and that way we can advise on it. We can advise them here, or at least we can take it back to Al or someone that probably has a little more information and knowledge on it, and just so they have some so they have all the right information up front when they're going to submit, generate this and submit it.
All right. You guys still getting feedback on the roundabout? I still hear.
Oh yeah.
Is the second one still scheduled, or did that get pushed with COVID, or?
Yeah, it's part of the big plan for traffic in Victor, but we haven't really gotten very far. We're working through the first one.
Yeah.
And we'll take all the information,
all the learning,
learning, and start talking about what that would look like for any future. But
well, right, because state did 96, obviously, right? But
right,
the other one would be us or town.
County, yeah.
Where's that one supposed to go?
The other end,
Lino.
Oh, on Lionel?
top by Ravenwood,
Oh yeah, okay.
where you got kind of Lino and everything kind of comes together in that corner there.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But yeah, there's been plenty of feedback on, including criticism of other drivers.
Yeah, I'm
Back
sure.
to turn signals, right?
Listen, I signal out.
Yeah,
It's on public record.
it's speed, people in the circle stopping to let other people in, which is not the intent. No signals, wrong signals, you name it. We've heard it all at this point, I think. Although you never know. Oh, I did hear a recent one, actually, based on this past weekend. Apparently, there's a large group garage sale up the hill, and apparently somebody stopped to put a sign in the middle of the roundabout
Oh. Ooh.
to point the direction of where the garage sale was, which people do. They put it on corners and whatever. Well, they decided the roundabout was a good place. So, but stopping your car in the middle of the roundabout, probably not the smartest idea. So somebody called them out on that. It's just, you're right. Maybe, we got to look at that. We're still getting a lot of information, so we'll see. But
Yeah.
Excellent. And I've seen a lot of the prep work going on for, I think they're going to call it Victor Jeep, right? Victor Chrysler Jeep. Yep. Saw that. That's happening.
yeah, there's a lot of work going on. And if you go further down 96, even into Farmington, just past where Tops is, they've leveled all that ground. All the trees are down in that area.
Oh yeah.
Plaza on the corner. Obviously, we got a lot of building going on off the corner of Boughton Hill there on 332, with huge housing developments going in there. And obviously, even though it's Farmington, it has a big impact on us.
Sure.
About those people traveling to, whether it's to the school, to the mall, to wherever, they're going to travel through Victor. So, a lot of concerns in that, and what that development will mean for us.
What is so is that housing that's going in right next to Tops there?
I don't know what's going in there. I just saw the other day that it was like all cut down, so it's like something's going in. I don't know.
They cut it down wicked fast. I mean, it
Yeah.
was cut.
So
and
I don't
now it's
know if
spinning.
it's housing or another like strip mall, plaza kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that yet.
I was wondering if if the pandemic would slow some of that, not slow it down. I mean, obviously it was slow. Construction's been slowed down, but just the demand for office space, right? The demand for any of that stuff as more companies look for hybrids or allowing folks to work from home. Are they still going to be looking for that space? So I thought it might have been a positive.
Yeah, I think you're going to see office space. There's going to be a lot of vacancies in buildings.
Mm-hmm.
Now that people have learned how to work from home, and some people prefer it. So that could be a perk for a company that, is looking to hire someone that say, hey, you can work from home.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's, something that people have to deal with, especially in the commercial real estate arena. The big thing I'm hearing right now is that as fast as houses are going for sale in Victor, it's like they're selling in like days, like a day, 2 days, 3 days, like ridiculously. And in some instances, way over asking price. So it's very interesting. I think the housing market is strong here.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of the companies, people have gotten so used to working from home, they have no interest in going back to the office.
Right.
I know I don't.
That's too convenient.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have that kind of job. I have to be in.
I'm
Yep.
in the office now, so I can't
I
talk.
see that.
Yeah. Poor Tim.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like we have Frank. Have you joined?
Yes,
Good evening.
good evening.
We're just we're waiting for some of your future neighbors to join.
Okay.
What lot are you?
Lot 6.
Lot 6. Okay.
Yeah, just as an overview, kind of what we were thinking about was being able to build on the top of the hill instead of the bottom. And then having the driveway where we picked it out, but kind of going through the hill at a curve.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the map right now. Oh, there you go. Thank you.
Thanks, Susie.
All right. Yeah. So you're kind of the sandwich lot. So you're looking to build up a little bit towards the back. You're saying towards the back of the conservation easement, or
Yes.
okay.
Well, all the way up in the back. We wanted to kind of flip flop it. So the green would be at the bottom, the 2.07 acres, whatever it comes out to be 2.5 acres.
Mhm.
And then on the back of where the hill is flattened out on the top would build right up there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Because
that's sense.
Can you point out the lot?
I think it's this one.
Is it that one? Okay.
It's hard to make out the numbers on my printout.
Yeah.
Mine too, but I believe it's that one as well.
Thanks. Okay.
So Frank, I guess how familiar are you with the easements? I know we've conducted some site walks. I don't know how
On a scale of 1 to 10, 1.
That's
All right,
fair.
good. I like the candor. So I guess we'll give you a quick overview of what the conservation board, who we are. We're an advisory board to the planning board, and we're exactly that. We weigh in on projects, whether it's commercial, whether it's residential like this, and we provide our inputs and comments on those projects, relative to any kind of new, I guess, conservation related, resource related items.
You might as well wait, Andrew. Looks like we
Yeah, I
got
see that.
everybody jumping in now. Okay.
Good. Exactly, right on time.
You gotta wait.
Someone's at baseball.
Yeah, somebody's got baseball going on.
Hey, good evening, everyone.
Yeah, I'm trying to coach a game at the same time. I'm sorry.
No worries.
That's Brian Ridley, and he and I are the ones that are buying the lot together with our daughter and my wife.
Okay, very good. Well, so we have Brian, we have Frank. Looks like we have Jonathan Sheldon and Eric Sheldon.
No relation. Just kidding.
What lots are you associated with?
Lot 5.
Lot number 5.
And I'm number 2. Can you guys hear me okay?
Eric's 5. Yep. Jonathan.
I'm number 2.
This is Nate Driscoll. I'm in lot 1.
Well, good to meet all my new neighbors.
Exactly.
Yeah, good timing. Great timing. So I think that's everyone that's planning to join tonight. As I was, starting to get to introduce ourselves a little bit, I'll back up, and so first and foremost, thank you for joining. Thank you for taking a few minutes. I think it's important that we get to listen to your voice in terms of what your project is, what you want to try to build, and how you want to use your land. We've learned from some past experiences, specifically with conservation easements, that setting them up the first time right, before you submit into the into the town and into the county, makes a world of difference, especially later on, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the road, when you go to build that swing set, or you go to build whatever it might be. So we want to be able to make sure that we are able to accommodate and guide you as best possible, within the boundaries we have with what the easement is. So I guess to that end, just a quick introduction on who we are. This is a conservation board. We're an advisory board to the planning board. And exactly that. We provide input on new projects, whether it's commercial, so large developments, or in this case, some of the residential, like you guys have, some of the smaller homes, and the easements, and any kind of conservation related topics, things like dirt removal or earth removal, or water control, placing trees, removing trees, you name it. When it comes to the natural resources, that's what we're aiming to review and provide input on. In this case, I think we've walked it a couple different times. We've met and talked, several times on this. I think we found that necessary, to invite you as the homeowners, and listen to what you have, what you'd like to do with that land, and understand. And before we get into that, this being a major subdivision, there is a requirement for us to apply an easement or conservation easement to each of these properties, or each of the subdivided properties, and that would be 50% of the space would be devoted to this, some sort of easement. And just a little bit of background on what an easement is. So it is basically, it's it's a document that's filed through the county and it's kept on record. You know, there's specific language as to what you can and cannot do in that particular area. And there's different types of easements. You know, there's natural resource, or what we would call the most restrictive, and then there's site specific, which is exactly that. You know, takes some language, some set of language, and customizes it to whatever that homeowner might be. And finally, there's also the least restrictive. You know, I will say, you know, some of the guidelines with like the most restrictive or the natural resource, you know, prevents, you know, essentially it's a non-touch area. I mean, it prevents any kind of, you know, mowing of grass, prevents any kind of, obviously, permanent structures like fences or playgrounds or anything like that from going in there. It also prevents any kind of, you know, motorized vehicles to go in there on that particular piece of property. And also, you know, it also prevents any kind of deadfalls from being removed. And I know there's a number of other clauses in there, but those are some of the higher points on the most restrictive. And, you know, from, you know, the opposite side of the spectrum, the least restrictive, you know, we've seen it where you can mow twice a year. You can go in and remove deadfalls or dead, you know, dead trees, you know, create trails. You can plant in there, you know, albeit that it's a native plant. So I guess that's just a quick overview of what the easement is. And obviously we're trying to, you know, protect the character of the land. You know, Victor, we're all living here for different reasons, but, you know, one of the unique features of Victor is it provides some pretty interesting and unique land features that you know, we're trying to preserve, and we're trying to you know, protect against any kind of development or anything, you know, of that nature. So to that end, I know I spoke a lot. I guess board, is there anything else you want to add?
Maybe just that, you know, this is kind of a unique scenario where we have individual lot future homeowners coming in as sort of one group to learn about the process, but individually, you know, the decisions will be made on each individual lot. So while we thought this was a good mechanism to sort of educate folks and answer a lot of questions, ultimately, you know, each individual lot owner will come before the board to have their site specific approved.
Right.
Do you know what the time frame would be for that?
For
each individual lot owner coming before the board?
Well, I guess it depends on you know, the commercial aspect when you take ownership and when you start the project. And I guess do you currently own the lots or
No, they're looking to close toward the third week of June.
Mm-hmm.
And in my particular case, I don't know about the rest of them. I had to, they indicated to us that how we could build and that type of thing and where we could build on the lots would be approved by the board before closing, so that, you know, I mean, I could actually back out of it if you said that we can only build on the bottom part of that lot, we could actually back out of buying it.
Yeah, it sounds like, you know, that's dependent on the planning board's input. Which are you scheduled to go before the planning board?
So there may be some helpful context. So there was a planning board meeting for the subdivision last month. that half of us were on. And in that proposal, when they were showing the easements, we realized that the easements were a little bit different than we originally anticipated, and we didn't know what they were. So, and by the way, I really appreciate you all putting this together for our education. It's super helpful. So in talking with Kim and some other folks, they were able to give us a little bit more clarity, share with us some of the language of the different types of easements and that type of thing. And the biggest question was, okay, when is this decided, right? Do we decide on what type of easements they are and where the easements are before the subdivision is approved? Or do we have the right as the land buyers to 2 years from now when we decide to develop it, can we come back? And the general consensus was, hey, if you're going to change the easements, you need to change them now. And we kind of all have realized that we're kind of in this a little bit backwards from a process perspective. Usually this is this is all done, and then we come in and buy the land, but we just happen to get into it a little bit sooner than that. So I think we have all adjusted the easement diagrams to our personal desires via the architect. So tonight was more about just, okay, what does it actually mean now, right? It feels like now we have usable land, whereas before the easements were just dropped in at like, okay, here's 50%, have fun. I'm like, well, that doesn't actually work. So here's where we actually want them. But now the next piece is from the Conservation Committee's perspective, and it may be a relatively short discussion. Like it may just be, hey, you're going to tell us that this is what we've anticipated. There's really not much you can do about it, and this is why. Okay. Or it's a little bit more conversive, and we say, okay, this is what we were thinking. I would plan to do this with my 5 acres versus the person that has 12 acres wants to do something a little bit different. So hopefully that's contextually helpful. But tonight, I think, was just really for us to get a better sense of which of these 3 easement types is available, or are they all available? Do we have to make the decision now before closing, or if in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years when we actually do our site plan, can we come and then request a different type of easement? And those are still just unknowns for everyone.
Yeah, I think it's important before closing, and this is just my opinion, purely my opinion, that you have your house site location picked out, mapped out properly. And it sounds like most of you do. Now, Frank, you may not, which I think that's
we had submitted it to the board and to the architect.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, I think setting those boundaries, with an actual architect and putting it on a site plan is probably the most important step. I can tell you, just based on my past experience with conservation easement, they have one on the property. The actual submission, you go to file this to the county, it doesn't happen at closing. It really happens sometime later on. And in my case, it happened much, much later. But I think from a perspective of knowing what you want to do with the land before you take ownership of it, that's probably the most important. And to answer your other question, relative to what options are available of the three types, and I think all of them are on the table. I think it really depends on what everyone wants to, how everyone wants to utilize that land. One thing that's important to us is continuity of the lots. I would prefer not to see one lot that's sandwiched between, let's say the one lot has a most restrictive and 2 lots to the left and right of it have site specific or least restrictive. I'd like to see the character of the land preserved, and so that's to me, and I'm speaking on behalf of the board, so feel free, you guys jump in. That's important to us.
Can
Go ahead,
can I
Brian.
step in here too, guys? And I'm glad you said that, because with us being in lot 6, we're the one that's sandwiched in between. And I've been out on that land many times trying to pace it out myself, without any markers, knowing exactly where the property lines are. You can kind of go off the map, but until you have actual stakes out there to know exactly where you are, you can say, oh, well, I could go this far, I could go that far. And, you know, our one thing with the way it was set up originally was, you know, our land set up where, you know, from the top of the hill, which is in the middle of the land, down to the road, there's a 30-foot drop off. And the buildable area was in the middle of the drop off the slope. So we would have had to dig into the hill, bring dirt in. We wanted everything on the back of the land where it flattened out and put the easement towards the front because we wanted to keep the natural characteristics of the land itself out there. That's why we moved, we have a small patch in the middle to be able to put a driveway going up, and then we can put a driveway going between the two big rolling hills rather than dig into any hills and get rid of that stuff. So, you know, it would have been helpful if there's more, I guess, stakes out there so you could really like really see what you're looking at. You know, I was out there many times. I was out there with a tape measure. I was pacing it off by foot, you know, just to kind of get a real good idea, to have to keep going back and forth saying, well, this is what we want. You guys get what I'm saying?
Yeah, makes sense.
So,
Yeah, I think Brian's point is all of ours, at least. So I know Nate, I know John, I've met Frank via phone, and everybody kind of has the same idea. It's like, we love the land because it's the way that it is, right? We
don't want to change any of that.
Yeah, we're buying land with woods on it. We're buying land with hills on it because it's gorgeous and that's how we want to build. So and appreciate the conservation board wanting to keep it the same. I think everybody on here is doing the same thing, where it's okay, now the easements are adjusted so that we can leverage the land characteristics for the way that it makes it most beautiful and useful, right? So no one's planning on coming in and putting in a trailer park or anything like that. It's single use. We're putting houses on it over the next couple of years. We've all got families, that type of thing. And just having a better understanding of what does that actually mean? Like, when I'm looking out my front door, what can I do and what can I do with the things that surround me, and how restrictive it is helpful. And I agree with Brian. Having some of that stuff marked off would have been great. I think the maps that we've all drawn have been helpful, but only to the extent that you can kind of visualize it while you're standing in the middle of 5 acres, right?
Exactly.
Understanding what we'll be able to do will be super helpful.
Has anyone provided examples of the different language types or easement
Yeah,
types?
so Kim had emailed them to me, and I think I forwarded them to most. Frank and Brian, I'm not sure if you got a copy of them.
No, I didn't. Yeah.
I can forward after this, but she gave the boilerplate of all three of them.
Okay.
And what I was going to mention is what you could expect. So you've, at least Eric, you've seen the language, and some of the others have seen the language. What you would expect, what you expect to see is you've got your home there, you've got this easement around it to some degree, and what you would find is as you got your C of O, markers would be placed on the property, either a 4x4 post with a sign on it that lets you know it's an easement, or even we've said certain trees could be planted or certain large stones. But in any case, if you picture where those lines are on the map, now picture if you're standing in the house that you would potentially be mowing up to those markers, and they would be, you know, at any corner, and for some of the longer runs, you may end up with one in the center. And the expectation is that you're only going to mow up to that, and the rest is going to have some sort of restriction on it. So Andrew mentioned it earlier. The restriction could be, well, you can only mow that portion a couple times a year. So it's going to be taller. It's going to be meadow grass. It could be very restrictive, which means, you know, beyond that marker, you're expected to not touch it at all. It's supposed to continue to grow wild. So just consider what that would look like as you're placing, you know, considering where you know, house placement and the easements, because we've run into issues before where, you know, somebody mows right down to the pond, you know, and then a neighbor says, I don't think you're supposed to do that. And all of a sudden there's some discussion, and turns out, oh, excuse me, that 4x4 post in the middle wasn't just left by the builder by accident. That's the edge of my usable lot. And, you know, that can be concerning for some folks when they thought they're, you know, they had more use of more of their land. So just wanted to be sure that you're aware of what that might look like.
That's helpful. As we get in, and I think one of the big questions, at least talking John and Nate and I know each other very well. So in these conversations that we've had, I think one of the biggest questions that we have is, as we're starting to look at where things are going to be, what makes the most sense for the house, and talking to like the guy that does the perk test and things like that, is how restrictive are these going to be? Like in the event, and I have, I guess, two follow-up questions. One, is there any on the planning board side of things, is there anticipation of water or sewer coming down this to either Strong or County Road, where we're going to be within the next 2 to 5 years? And if no, how restrictive can we not make it for things like well and septic or in leach fields? Because one of the things that it's impossible to know right now is that, without having done anything with the land, is where are those things going to go, right? Having the leach field, may the best place for it, based on someone that's not me, the engineer, says it's right in the middle of your easement. Like, can we accommodate for that in advance, or is that something that's going to happen a little bit closer to build, and kind of just getting rid of some of the unknowns? So I think, so there's two questions there. Is there any plan from the planning board that that you're aware of, that water or sewer is going to come down that direction? And if not, is there any ability to, in any of these easements, in the site specific, I would anticipate that we could use we could put well or septic underneath?
Yeah, so I'll answer part of that, and I think Ed, you might have to jump in on the potential plans. But in terms of the actual leach field, and someone brought up, one of the board members, Pat, brought up the well, and I think that's a great question. So there is past precedent on previous projects where we've executed a site specific easement with a leach field in it. So we had to actually detail that out in the language itself. I think we'd have to go back and discuss the well, just to understand. I mean, practically it's probably the same rationale as the leach field, but we've never had that before. So yeah, that would require some sort of site specific and actually spelled out in that. If that's the way you want to go. In terms of the future, I don't know, Ed, or anyone else for that matter, I don't know if you can comment on that.
Just for the group, my name is Ed Kahovic. I'm on the town board. I am the liaison to the conservation board at this time. And just so you know, there are no current plans for that at all. Not to say that it'll never happen, but sitting here today, I can tell you there's no plans that I am aware of about sewer going in on that part of town. Now, if something happened up Strong Road and, a big development came in and they, were willing to put stuff in, I do know that part of the town's comprehensive plan is that everything south of Fountain Hill Road was really not even intended to have like the sewers and those things. That was part of the development, or limiting development on the south side of Fountain Hill Road. So, and that's from basically the Mendon County line all the way to the Farmington line, and that was in the town's comprehensive plan. There have been some discussions with a developer where there is a potential to put in a smaller development, actually bigger than this, but small by our normal, the way we look at them. And he was going to put in sewer lines because it was going to be gravity fed, but that was going to be all on the developer to put it in and hook it up. That was not, the town was not going to do that. And there would be a fee that would be associated with it for the upkeep of things like pump stations. That would be as part of the process of developing and buying the land, so to speak. So sitting here today, I can tell you, we have not heard anything about any development going in that area at all right now. So I don't know if that helps you or hurts you. I think I do know that in the one case where it was the other end of town by Farmington, and he was looking to get a sewer extension, the developer felt that for what he wanted to build there, that septic would not be an option for him. Now that was his own personal feeling. That's how he develops his, properties. And we did agree at that time, if he was to continue with that proposal and that development, that as long as he was going to be putting in the sewer line and connect into the line that's there, which is basically just up the road. So if you could imagine, if currently Strong Road halfway up to the, I guess that'd be the north, right? If halfway up there was a sewer line there somewhere, you know, potentially as this gets developed, then there could be a discussion about that. But currently there's nothing in the works. So I hope I answered your question.
Yes, don't be
That's
optimistic about
super
it.
helpful. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, so it basically says for all of us, we're anticipating well and septic. So that then adds back into, do we have to actually put it as part of the easement potentially?
Yeah,
Yep.
I would say so, yes.
So, and maybe just to share a quick story to maybe ease some of Eric's concerns, is because, yeah, I mean, this is a bit of a unique scenario in the steps we're taking. So, I mean, you know, as certainly it's best if we kind of nail it on the first try and everything goes well. And where you want your septic is, you know, in well it fits perfectly in with the easement. But I mean, there have been examples. The one I'm thinking of most recently is where the way the easement was laid and where the house ended up being built, the person literally, the easement went right up to the house. They couldn't even have, you know, a little mulch around the side. And, you know, clearly that wasn't the intention or, you know, reasonable. And so we, you know, did make an adjustment or move the easement around. So, I mean, you know, we try not to do those things, but certainly there are circumstances that come up, and we like to work obviously with our fellow Victor townspeople.
And if I may make one more point about easements in general, they go with the land. I don't know if you're aware of that, but so if Eric builds his house and has the easement, he's all set, and then 5 years down the road, he sells the house, that easement remains.
Right.
Right? Okay, I just want to make sure you guys all understand that once that's decided and the easement's set, it's really hard to undo it.
Right.
If I could, I'm just looking at the map here. The dark gray, just to be sure I'm looking at this correct, the dark gray is the proposed easements as they stand right now. Is that correct? Looking at the screen we're looking at now.
Yeah, I think that's
okay.
Yes, that's correct.
So
those and I believe
yes, that's correct.
Everybody can jump in, but I believe those all reflect the final ones we all did with the engineer.
Okay, and my only thought here is, again, I think Andrew mentioned this at the beginning. You know, we're always going to want continuity and trying to look big picture. So, like when I look at this and I look at between lots, I think it's lot 2 and 6. I was actually able to pinch it and pull it in so I could really see. So between lots 2 and 6, I see that real thin line. Yep, if you bring the, yep, right there. So, you know, it's hard to tell scale on here, but that's not very wide. And so what you're going to, as it stands right now, what you're going to have is an easement marker at each corner of that. And then, you know, you're each going to have that little strip that is going to stay, let's say, unmowed. So that would just be a concern of mine.
There's trees there too.
There's trees there right now. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, good. Okay.
And just so we're clear, and I don't want to speak for lot 6, but I moved mine over closer to the property line, kind of the same reason. If I don't, I have to move an excessive amount of dirt to make a driveway. So that's kind of why we're kind of looking at it, at least from my perspective, and it seems like everybody's on the call, trying not to disrupt the land as much as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Exactly. We want it to try to fit, we want the project to fit the land. We want the easements to be as continuous as possible. You know, normal, no, I shouldn't say normal, but many times what happens is a builder would buy this whole piece of land. A builder would have the easement over at one end or where the water is or on the top of the hill. And then the rest of the lots, you know, would maybe abut each other, just like, you know, many neighborhoods that you've seen in the past. So this is very unique, trying to balance 7 different plans with 7 different folks. And of course, we've also got the fact that you're all doing this at different times, right? So the first person goes, they set their easement, next person goes, the easement doesn't work with what they're trying to do. And that's where my concern is just from a continuity standpoint, you end up, really, we'd love to see animals running through parts of this, right? We want it to be continuous. So we want to hit that 50%, but also have it be where, the deer can run, the property back in that spot and that sort of thing. So it's just going to be a tough balance.
Right.
In my opinion.
So the way this is laid out now, with the gray area being the easements, is that what the planning board is going to propose to the town board? The conservation board is going to propose to the town board, I should say.
Well, we would give our recommendation up to the planning board, but yes, based on what we're seeing here, that makes sense. What we're hearing, I don't personally see any, reasons not to. I think it makes sense, in particular lot 6, we push back because there's need to, place the house on a, flatter area. With lot 2, it makes, that rationale to bias towards, the south side of this property line, that also makes sense. So yeah, I don't see a reason not to go with this, how it stands.
Okay. And then they had mentioned single use. I just want to qualify on lot 6. What we're looking at doing is building, my daughter and son-in-law building a house, and we're going in with them and building in-laws quarters. And, I get that we have to have enough parking spaces and all that, but the in-laws quarters would be attached to the main house and be about 1,200 square feet.
Yeah.
And the main house would be about 3,400 square feet.
Gotcha. Yeah. That falls within the, planning board and their, their purview. So.
Right.
But by and large, what I'm seeing here, and I'll mention also lot 5, I like the fact that, we follow the contour of the existing tree line. I think overall the layout of this makes sense. Now it's a matter of language. Now, I do want to circle back a little bit and talk a little bit why I brought this map up. Matt mentioned, these markers, you can actually see them on the site plan here.
Yeah.
It's important, to have those marked out, especially in the future when someone goes to use this, or if you go to sell it, that it's properly marked. But in terms of, we'll use an example. If we go with like a site specific, for these lots, and I'm going to just pick on lot 2 because it's right in front of me here. But if we wanted to mow, if that person wanted to mow, they could mow all the way up to this point. If we said, okay, let's give a site specific and you can mow twice a year, anything in this gray shaded area, they could mow twice a year, or, they could go out and remove trees if they're deadfalls, as we would call them, would be the technical term. But so that's the essence of what a conservation easement is. So you're entitled to mow and take care of this area here, but anything over that line, is essentially controlled or dictated by that language. So it is important now to try to nail it as best possible, in terms of what do you want to use with this. And I'll be honest with you, as I'm sitting here listening to all this, to me, it seems like a site specific would make the most sense, especially considering that you had to go the septic system route, and it gives you opportunity to place the septic in the easement area if you need to. But that, to me, site specific with particular boundaries, and I'll leave it up to everyone, the landowners, to figure out what those specifics would be, whether it's mowing, whether it's removal of any kind of deadfalls or, we've had people set up gardens, little, small areas that you can plant and put plantings in, native species. So there is a variety of ways clauses you can put in there that help or loosen up the restrictions on that.
Yep. And
Okay.
Andrew,
And
what I'd
if I
add to
can
that,
just, oh, sorry, Matt.
I was just gonna say what I'd add to that is just also keep in mind things that can't go in there. So no swing sets, sheds, pools, hardscape, fire pits, nothing else really man-made, would be approved to be back in those spots.
Permanent
In the
yeah.
gray areas, you mean, right?
In the gray. Yep.
Permanent structures. That's one of the key items is anything that's a permanent structure. And Matt kind of nailed it there with man-made is probably the best rule of thumb there.
Got it.
Do you want us to talk about our lots right now? Is that what you're saying, or no?
I mean, if you're prepared to, certainly, this is an open forum, and you're welcome to provide any kind of input.
Yeah. So I specifically, I think Driscoll, Nate and I were some of the first, I think, on the property in general. And so I've built my easements around literally where I think already the septic and well are supposed to go. So for me, that's fine, because I've made sure that they're actually inside of my property line anyways. But for like mine on lot 2, obviously there's a big chunk of woods in the back there, right? One of the main reasons I'm number 2.
2? Okay.
Yeah. So there's obviously a lot of woods in the back of my lot. That's one of the reasons I'm buying it. I'm a bow hunter, so I want to be able to hunt that property, which also means that I'd want to be able to take down dead trees, do things like that. There's already trails back there, so I'd want to be able to maintain those trails, right? As far as you can see, obviously where the obvious woods kind of end, and then I obviously have some more easement there. I'm who knows? I'd love a site specific to be able to mow it, right? My plan is to plant fescue, because right now it's just kind of like an alfalfa field. So, and just leave it all natural, but to purposely plant long grass there, that's my idea for it, looking at the land. And with fescue, if you can really only mow it once a year to make sure that it's healthy. So that would be my idea. But obviously I'd like to be able to make some modifications into the woods, not cut down trees and stuff, but maintain the trails. If there's a dead tree, be able to take it out of there, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that fits the character of a site specific. We've entertained that.
Okay, cool.
In previous projects. So yeah, I think you're heading down the right path there.
Yeah, because obviously I'd like to be able to take a gator through those, not like a 4-wheeler or anything, but like a gator or something through the trails to if I get a deer or something, you know what I mean?
When was the last time you got a deer?
Would we
Yeah,
have
John.
motorized? That'd have to be site specific. Usually motorized vehicles are one of the things that aren't back there, I would think, right, Andrew?
Yeah, that's probably the only caveat you mentioned there is, motorized vehicles are not allowed on those easement areas.
One question
How
I
would
think I'm
you-
still a little fuzzy on is, are we trying to solve for the site specific or the type of easement this evening? Or will that be something that when we actually present our site plan from the architect for the build in front of the planning board that we will ask for?
Now,
That's what I'd rather see,
Yeah.
is have you guys show us what you'd like to do. You've got the language, your architect has been before hundreds of boards. They know what we're looking for as well. So generally that's what happens is they'll come to us with the proposal. And then, there's usually some give and take, and then something that works for everybody is the outcome.
So the follow-up caveat to that is that we're not planning it, but so I'm not planning on building for probably a year and a half to 2 years. Frank, I'm not sure when you are, but I know John and Nate,
About the same thing, yeah.
Yeah, same scenario. So when would you anticipate it? Like if we let's say we close on this July 1st, but we're not going to build on it until 2023. Do we have that latitude, or do these easements have to be like locked in within like in this year or some period of time following a transfer of ownership?
I think it's a good question. I can tell you just from my own personal experience, there's latitude, but I think we should reach back to the town and to and understand, is there a specific timing to that? Matt, you were going to say something?
I was just wondering, yeah, I mean, if these are approved building lots, does that need to be hashed out now? If they're not, if they're just lots, I'm not sure either. This is frankly a little bit new for us as well.
Yeah.
From a timing standpoint.
So my understanding through interaction with the town board and just trying to get as much information as possible is that there's basically this 2-year window that we have from ownership transfer to site plan until there's some type of new, I don't know if it's petition to the town or something like that, but even though they'll end up being approved building lots, that there's certain, like the perk test is only good for I think 3 or 5 years. There's certain things that have to be reapplied for if it goes dormant for too long. So Andrew, I appreciate the feedback. I think that for me at least, the one biggest thing is, when do we have to do this? If I don't have to do it until I'm ready to actually put a house on it and go in front of the planning board and present that, great, because I'm not going to use the land between now and then anyway. But if it's trying to figure all of that out in the next 60 days, it's a little bit more challenging and obviously a little bit more rigorous.
Right. Yeah, I think we should take that action, or at least bring that question back internally.
Right.
And provide some feedback.
Let me ask one other question, if I could. Earlier I heard you say the gray area can only be mowed depending once or twice a year. And then I heard you say that in the gray area, no motorized vehicles. How do you plan on us mowing it? Once or twice a year?
Well, that's where the caveat with, there is with the mowing once or twice a year specifically. I mean, you can use a lawnmower or some sort of tractor to do that.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
And that brings up a good point that Eric brought up, because he made a comment of, I'm not planning to build on mine, like you said, for probably 2.5 years. But again, like I mentioned before, I am planning on not touching it, but using it as hunting property until then. Am I going to be restricted in any sort of way? Because I'm the landowner, but is there any type of restriction between that time period is my question, I guess.
Oh, that's also a good question. I think that needs to also be defined a little bit. This is a little bit different, I will just say, because of normally I believe someone mentioned this earlier, typically our projects come in, especially with a developer, they're drawing these up and they're providing everything right at the the point of really kicking off. So this being that everyone's acting as one but all separate, you say, it is a little bit different. So there's no past precedent for us to go back to. So I think, but that's a good question on whether that easement area, when does that take effect, and when does the restriction start? Can you go back there and take a 4-wheeler or whatever now if there's no building lot or anything like that, or house on it?
Yeah, if you get a buck and it comes onto lot 6, you're welcome to go onto lot 6 once we close and get the buck. But I got to have a loin chop from it.
With the backstrap.
Yeah.
Deal.
I think you have to invite the conservation board over for some too. So.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah, man. Just yeah, but happy to.
Well,
I think at this point, Andrew, it sounds like We've got some homework to do, right?
Yeah,
Get back
yeah,
to
it
these
sounds
guys.
like, yeah, I think we need to check on, just going through my notes here, make sure I grab everything. It looks like we need to verify, a well and whether that's been, can be written into a site specific. And then really looking at the conservation easement and when does it take effect? Does it need to be filed, immediately after closing, or is it sometime after, say when the house starts to be built, or, somewhere in between? So,
At the risk of being redundant, is there a time frame that you typically have some of this stuff? We can expect this to be back, because one, and Frank mentioned this earlier, that this will be a contingency for us to close, right? If it comes back and it's like, hey, you have to get this done in the next 60 days, and or this is what it's going to look like. There may be some people that opt not to do this.
yeah. No, yeah, so it is time sensitive. I can, typically our next meeting would be, it looks like June 8th. However, I think we can have an answer, within the week, so a week from today. So by the 25th, it seems like we could give some, at least some guidance, some feedback, particularly on the timing part of it.
Mm-hmm.
25th of June, you're saying, or
25th of May. Just so
May?
you-
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, Andrew, I have it down as June 1st is the next meeting.
Is it June 1st? Okay. Yeah, you're right. It's the first Tuesday of the month. And the first day. Yeah, so we'll get you an answer, or at least try to get some clarification on what does the timing look like, and get that over to you.
Okay. Do you guys all have that map that they projected up onto the screen? With the
No, I don't have that final, no.
Yeah, can we get a copy of that?
Yeah, should.
Frank, I have a copy of that.
Oh, do you? With the markers on there, Brian?
Yes.
All right. Maybe you can distribute it to the other potential landowners.
Yeah, I believe I have it. I'll check.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to resend it, that'd be great, but I'm pretty sure we have it.
All right.
Well, it looks like everybody pretty much is on the same page on these lots. It's more in question of the easements and when we have to have final plans, after the fact that we've purchased land and we already own them. Because everybody still has questions, it seems like.
Yeah, and I think the other common theme is the aesthetics of the land. Everybody that is potentially buying wants to maintain the land and infrastructure.
Everybody's on the same page with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
so I'm good.
All right. Good. Any other questions?
No, sir.
No, definitely appreciate your time tonight, gentlemen. It was super helpful.
It's great.
Yeah, thanks,
greatly
guys.
Appreciated. And for the landowners, I can say that you guys have been really communicative back and forth to us, and we certainly do appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. I think it's it's good to have these working meetings. I think it'll pay off. So it definitely will pay off in the end for everyone. It makes our job easier too in the end too. So
yep,
appreciate it.
Very fine. Well, thank you again, gentlemen.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
And
Okay.
you want a motion to
Yes. Motion to close the meeting.
adjourn? All right, I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All right. Second by Pat. All right. So close.